Lily, are you there? Lily, are you there? Yeah. Here, Mr.
Hey.
How are you?
Good, just been through a car wash.
Oh, right. Yeah, that was coming down. Feel free to sit anywhere you'd like.
Well, I'm left-handed, so I always have to be on the end
I
somewhere.
understand, Sarah's the same way. This tends to be my spot.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how it happened, but so where I put myself.
Yeah, whenever we go out with a crowd, and don't let me forget my umbrella.
Oh, I'll do my best.
It probably won't be raining when we come back. I always go, Mike, where are you sitting? Because
Right.
wherever I sit, that's the arrangement for everybody else.
Right.
Nobody wants to sit next to the left-handed person. Hey there.
Hi.
All right. How you doing today?
Good.
Issue after issue.
Karen worked for me for a while.
Oh, really?
It's when this was many years ago when the school districts had to have a homeless coordinator, somebody in charge of the homeless population. When you're the assistant superintendent, you get every one of those jobs.
Of course,
So,
catch-all.
yeah. And Sharon worked, I knew some of her family and so forth, and so anyway, she was my first one before we even knew that there was homeless people.
Well, Mark is out there, but I guess we'll wait till. Oh, there you go. How you doing?
I'm not sure if Lily has joined in yet.
Hey.
Joe
Hey,
messaged
Mike.
me a little bit ago and said that she had
Good.
not tried to call in just yet.
I don't mean to sit at the head of the table, I'll sit.
I don't think there really is one.
Oh, no.
I really don't want you to come in. You're not going to be able to social distance in here.
What is 5 feet?
6.
So do we advertise this?
Somebody asked. So what the law says is that for a subcommittee, if somebody calls us and asks us when it's going to be, then we tell them later. Yeah, I didn't know that rule either until I looked it up.
I thought it had to be advertised.
Now, it's a special committee, an emergency, like a special meeting, an emergency meeting of the board, or the board itself has to all be advertised. But a subcommittee, it says that it's just, if somebody were to call us and ask us, because it's announced in the meeting
Yeah.
that they're gonna have a subcommittee, and so at the meeting, they didn't know.
Okay. Well, I'm not familiar with that, honestly.
Yeah, I can look that
Is
up
it-
for you again.
Does it have a, Because I know, like,
Dr.
for
Lily, can
example,
you
when I
help?
was with the city, we had, similar situations, and if the mayor, was present, you know what I mean, with, so many council members, it made a difference whether.
Yeah, they have a whole other
It's
set
different.
of rules.
With elected officials, I guess it's different,
Well, it's a municipality, like you understand that, like on those, they have readings before they can do any policies and stuff like that, and so
Yeah.
we're not required to do any of those kinds of things. They
Okay.
got a whole, look, we asked for their rules, it's long and big.
So you're confident we're meeting all FOIA requirements?
Well, that's a different subject, but yes, yeah.
Hey, Dr. Lily, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
great.
Lily, thanks for being able to adjust your schedule. Appreciate it. This is Mike.
Hi, how are you, Mike?
Doing good. Got a car wash on the way over here.
Well, I I didn't anticipate that actually. It was quite a
Yeah.
good wash, free one.
Yes, it was.
But I think you're banned from the library?
Me? No, that's not me.
Okay, that's not something, okay, very good,
Deanne. That's not me.
okay. I'm glad.
Yeah. Not I.
So this is Christy Gates, she's.
Okay, yeah.
I'm sorry.
Chris and I are long friends.
Okay.
We went to school together.
Okay, so she's in charge of all of our collection development for the adults, but
Our moms worked together.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I just asked her to come just in case anybody had any questions about anything.
Yes.
Because this would impact the collection development policy, because it would have to change then,
Okay,
so.
all right, I guess Mike, waiting on anybody.
I think I think you're all here, because Lily's there, it's just the three of you.
Okay,
on this
yeah.
document.
Okay. Janice is out of the country. Wow.
She went on a cruise.
Did she?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All righty. So, we're here today to discuss these different kinds of material and try to come up with a policy proposal that we can present at the next board meeting, and if not, we can at least give a progress report that we're working along. I didn't know that we could even all get together. You know how many emails
I know.
I had to send out to
Yeah.
finally find out when we could all get here.
Yeah.
Sir.
Okay. Anybody have anything as far as wanting to do one first before the other? Does it make any difference?
I thought we were just doing the sensitive materials. We're doing
Yeah.
another document as well.
No, just we
Well,
got,
this one ties into the sensitive, I think you have to do the sensitive materials notice first, and
Okay.
then, because this is based on this one.
on the other one.
Okay,
yeah. Okay. Okay, so you got the printout.
Yeah.
All right. David, give me the, for everybody who's here, give me the time frame and where all of this came from.
Well, the former board member who's here, Amanda Eskew, is the one that, proposed this.
Uh-huh.
And I think that she proposed it before the last meeting, and then, that's when, Janice decided to form this subcommittee to sort of look at it and make it, for you guys to discuss and see what you wanted to do with it.
Okay.
So,
All right, did you have a chance to read it over?
Yes, sir.
All right.
I did. And I have a few modifications, and I'm sure there'll be some discussion.
All right.
But are you okay with me?
Yeah, sure,
making a
this
comment?
is just a discussion.
Okay,
Yeah.
and this may open up a whole nother, conversation, but, we have an online access, right, to all, thousands of books, right?
Right, because we're part of a
And
consortium.
Right.
Right.
And so, one of my concerns is, yes, we can try to, protect children with the books we have on our shelves. But there's really this whole other source out there, right? There's a click of a button, they can get just about any book, right? Through us, and I think the difference is, that we're paying for this service, So if we're paying for the service, and it's tax dollars going for the service, then the material, even online, that we're paying to be a part of, I think also should fall under this document. I know that's a complicated thing, and that's not an easy thing, but it's definitely another facet that maybe that's a different conversation, but it's important to me,
So, Tanya's more up on it because she was on that committee for a little while and she was more involved with it, but, we pay for one company called Access 360, which is just us, and that's just material that we use and we share it to the schools, and we set it up so that we would support all of the classroom libraries in all the schools, the local schools. So we've made an arrangement with them so that their kids can check it out. They don't need a library card to check it out through the school. It gives the teacher sort of information that we are not privy to because of privacy. It tells, how long the kids read or how much they read or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But then anybody can come with a library card and also check out the books. That particular service is not part of the consortium.
Okay.
So the part of a consortium is called a company called Overdrive, or if you have the app, people refer to it as Libby, but it's the same company. Their app is called Libby, but it's the Overdrive company.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we joined the consortium, we basically said that all of our material is now available to every one of the other libraries in the consortium. So I think we have to pay some sort of a platform fee, but then we just buy the material that we want, and then it's available, and we can set up limits for it
We
to
do.
be available for
We
either,
Other things that
Yeah.
Tanya and I have put in place, all the new materials that myself and our teen librarians select, because it's mostly adult and teen materials that we select through the consortium.
Mm-hmm.
And we have it set up that anything brand new that we pick out, our patrons in our service area get first grabs at it.
Right.
Now, the idea, and I think, is it 3 months or 6 months? 6. 6 months is the time limit, and after 6 months, then everything gets shared to all the libraries that are part of the consortium.
Right.
So you choose what material is in that.
Well, we choose
Right.
the material that we buy,
Right.
but we don't control
What other
what
libraries?
other libraries buy, and some
Okay.
other libraries might have it set up to where they buy it today and it's available to
Okay.
anybody in the consortium tomorrow.
Yeah.
Or it could be available after a month or 6 months or whatever they set up, so.
So if we modify this document to say, allow the board to make recommendations regarding the purchasing and placement, of books, including online availability, of books and materials. So would that,
It's not really gonna work.
Okay.
Because after whatever time limit they put in, like if Faulkner County buys whatever book,
Mm-hmm.
anybody in the consortium can still get that, and we don't control that. I mean, we're just it's in other words, you're looking at it from the point of view of trying to sort of block things, and the consortium's goal is really to just share resources, so not everybody has to pay all the money. I mean, we went from maybe 18,000 titles to like 90,000 titles access for all of our members, and so it's cheaper and everybody can share it all the way around.
Okay. Well, that'd be a different conversation then.
Okay.
So, let's see here. So, do we have actually a tween department? I guess would that wording need to be modified?
We don't have a tween
Yeah.
department.
So we would need to modify that. I would also like to add, books and materials which possess a clear intention to expose, educate, promote, so add the word expose. there's just things that we shouldn't have in the children's and the teen section. And, sexual acts, stuff like that, this, in my opinion, shouldn't be, in there. I mean, if we have books talking about blowjobs, like I was thinking about this. Let's say my daughter doesn't know what that means. And she picks up a book and it's in the teen section or whatever, and she reads about that. Are we okay with let's say that's the first time she's exposed. We're kind of making assumptions that all these kids know all this stuff, and we're just kind of like being a part of culture, right? But let's say this child hasn't been exposed to that before. Are we okay with taxpayer dollars being funded to buy that book, and essentially it defrauds that child? Defrauding means to steal something, to steal her innocence, or his innocence. Are we okay with taxpayer dollars going to defraud that child in a sexual manner in that way? Is it our role to educate them on blowjobs? Are we okay with that? So, I mean, that's my concern with this. Like, I'm seeing books and pictures of books in our teen section that honestly I would consider borderline pornographic.
Okay.
And that really concerns me.
What age group, is the teens books for? I mean,
It should be for 13 through 17.
13 through 17. What's, above 17?
Well, then it's just the adult collection.
Adult, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So there should be I think,
So, excuse me,
Yeah.
so children's section is up to age 13, is that right? Or
0 to
is there
12.
more?
We kind of say 0 to 12, but you guys can correct me on that. That's what we were talking about in our collection development, where we put the categories.
Okay, so the material comes in three categories then, children's, teens, and adults,
Mhm.
right?
I mean, we break it into just a little bit sub.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
thought
we
there
have
were
some
more
subheadings.
subheadings,
Yeah, there are some.
Okay.
Because we also have the easy fiction, easy picture books. That's for those who are learning how to read, or reading with a parent or a guardian. We have the board books, and that's for
Infants.
infants and toddlers that are just, experiencing reading, what
Yeah.
a book is and
Got
all
it.
that. And that's the reason why they're more
That's the
hard.
chewing on a book.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the durable ones,
Yeah.
yeah.
so anyway,
Are they all in the same place in the library though, or are they in different sections?
They're in
different
different sections, yeah.
Okay.
So I asked to add that word expose. I think that just needs to be added.
Where is that?
It's under the definition, the first line in the
Okay.
definition.
I think if he's wanting it before educate, is that?
Educate, expose, promote, yeah, just in that line of
Okay.
criteria. A modification that I would like to see is, topics of, number one is topic of sexual and or romantic experiences, or attraction. So what I have seen is, in the teen section, specifically books talking about people performing different sexual acts. So not only romantic attraction, I think that's, when I think about that, I think what's inappropriate to say that a 4 or 5-year-old has a romantic attraction. I think that's inappropriate and error, but also experiences. I mean, if we're talking about, something that's, somebody is below 18 and they're having sexual experiences, we have to keep in mind that this is, I know we can talk about maybe the religious rules or whatever, religious criteria, right? But the CDC themselves, while we're wearing these masks, the CDC says it is unhealthy for a child to be sexually active, okay? The most healthy thing is for a monogamous, right, relationship for their life. That is the most healthy thing. So I know, so we're really not promoting. It's not about the health of the child. We need to have it about the health of the child. So if we really want what's best for the child, we're gonna really think carefully. Are we exposing them to these things, and is that gonna push them down a path? It's not our place. It's just not our place to do that. if, you know, in a or a taxpayer-based, you know, facility to pay for that type of material that the CDC says is harmful, we would never have books in here that would promote smoking and say if you feel like smoking, you should smoke, right? We would never do that because we know where that path leads. And so for us to have these type of books in the teen section, ultimately, I feel like we're promoting that lifestyle, and it's that's why I think the board needs to see these books when they have any kind of sexual acts in them. The board needs to have, or somebody, right, evidently it's the board, has to have some discretion, okay? Is this a sex education book, or is this basically something more sensual, you know, which really falls into the pornography range? So for what I'm seeing that we have in our teen section, it's we're on some shaky ground, you know, in my opinion. Just, I guess, to put it lightly. Any comments on a little bit? I would also like to add in line item number 3, topics of family planning and sex education. What I am seeing is books that are under the guise of sex education are really just too much, you know. And honestly, I just have heard some descriptions of some of the pictures, but for example, which, I mean, we can try to, I don't know, I don't have this book here, but if we promote, you know, like, for example, male-on-male intercourse in, like, a sex ed book, do we know, and you may not know this, that that 2 men in that relationship are 17 times more likely to develop cancer? And so if we promote that as a healthy form of sexual intercourse in our sex education material, I don't know really why we had to have that. But anyways, maybe we do. We can talk about that. But we are not promoting, that's from the CDC, and I can email you that document, 17 times more likely, okay? That'd be like us promoting smoking. You understand? Do you see the relation there? It's actually right pretty much in line as far as increased cancer risk. So what we call sex education is, you know, and what that term is being kind of hijacked, if you will, to include all kinds of vile things. And so that are actually harmful to the child, according to the CDC, not according to me. I mean, it's according to the CDC, 17 times greater risk of cancers, certain types of cancers. And so we are responsible for this. As a board, as a library staff, we have a role to play in all this. And we are the gatekeepers, if you will. We have to guard the children's hearts. And so I'd like to add the sex education line in there from just what I've seen in books that are, quote unquote, designed to be sex education. They just go too far.
Your kids go to public school?
They go to Ridgefield. 2 of mine go to Ridgefield, and one goes to we homeschool one. And so
are they in 6th grade or above? One of them?
No, they're not.
Okay.
My oldest is 11.
Okay.
But you know, and I understand they have sex education in schools, and that's also a hot topic. But it's just not. You know, we can have some books that maybe are appropriate sex education books. You know, that might be a different conversation. But what I'm saying is we need to be able to see those. So all this document does is if something gets triggered by it, the board gets to look at it and say, I don't really think so. Now, it's my understanding we do that to all kinds of materials. We don't accept any book in the library, do we? I mean, every single book we actually say, do we have somebody that reads?
Explain your process.
Okay, so we do take donations in, but myself and the teen librarian and the assistant youth service manager, we look over them. A lot of times the big thing is condition, because much as I hate to say this, There are some people who love to find these old things in their attics and basements, and they think, hey, we need the 1993 encyclopedia set. We do not need a 1993 encyclopedia set. I'm glad you thought of us, but we really don't. So that's the thing. I consider, and I believe my team as well, we consider the condition, the age, if it's especially if it's a nonfiction book. If it's written from, I say 5 to 10 years older, we're not going to put it in. We also consider what circulates well. For example, James Patterson, he's everywhere. So I'll go check and see, hey, what's the condition of our James Patterson book? Oh, he's looking a little rough around the edges, and this one is brand new from a bookstore. We also have to consider how much time it's going to take our catalogers to catalog it, because a lot of these donated materials that we receive, they have to originally catalog it, originally process it, because with our vendors, we have an agreement that they do some of the pre-processing, those nice Mylar jackets, DVD cases. So these are all things we take into consideration. Do we already have this material? Is this material checked out? What are the reviews? What are the, has it won awards? All these little things we think about. Same thing we do when we select our material. What are the reviews? Is it, is it an author that's well known? Is it a publisher that's reputable? Is this something somebody's publishing out of their basement somewhere? We don't, these are all things that, and the same thing with donations. A lot of times they go to our friend's bookstore and they're sold, and, they go back into the library because, I have to consider how much time it's going to take somebody to catalog and whether or not this is ever really going to get checked out, because I just don't want something sitting on my shelf collecting dust.
So as far as...
It's not cost effective.
Exactly, thank you.
So what I'm hearing is how something ends up in the teen section is ultimately if somebody writes a book intended for that audience. Okay, and it gets good reviews of it, right? So there is nobody looking at that book seeing if it's actually age appropriate. Like I guess we're just trusting the author or the publisher.
Well, there are review sites that when she looks up in our system, we have a jobber, what's called a book jobber, and that's where we buy all of our stuff from. The company's called Ingram.
Ingram, yeah. I've got an example.
So when she's interested in a book, right, she either saw it on a bestseller list or wherever. You can look it up. And then this is kind of a review of what that looks like. So this is just a screenshot. So you look up the book, and then it gives you all those reviews, and it gives you other information down at the bottom.
It gives us so we check the professional reviews. There's a few other places I check.
I think I gave you several copies of samples of that in one of the board booklets in, I think, June, in the August board book.
Yeah.
That's why that was so long.
The thing I spend most of my time doing is sorting through professional journals, professional reviews, such as Kirkus, Library Journal. For the children's side, it's School Library Journal, Book List, Horn Book. School Library Journal usually tells you the age group, the age appropriateness, and, this is in this book, or that's in this book, or, Kirkus can be harsh. So I look at Kirkus, or critical, let me put it that way. And I look at Kirkus a lot because there are some journals that are trying to sell things, Publishers Weekly. That's the reason why we don't look at Publisher Weekly anymore. They're just trying to get their stuff sold.
We kind of don't trust their review because they're going to make everything sound good. And so if that's their only review, and if I was doing it, and I've done it in the past, and she's done it in the past, we've all done what she does, I would not buy that book. You know what I mean? Because it's just, then you're really suspect. I will add this one caveat. There are certain books, and even this goes into a lot of the DVDs, but there are certain thresholds in terms of popularity. For example, maybe John Grisham's not the greatest writer in the world. He's not going to get good reviews, but we know everybody in the world wants to get out the next book of John Grisham. So in that case, we would buy the John Grisham book. Or, we have standing orders of some of the popular authors.
We have a list of standing authors that we get automatically. Patterson.
But that's more of a popularity point of view.
All those that you
Yeah.
guys see on the bestseller list, Daniel
Right.
Steele, James Patterson, Nicholas Sparks, Stephen
Yeah.
King, et cetera, et cetera.
All of this is outlined in our collection development policy, so it explains all of this and explains all of the different, places that we look and things like that. And we update that every 2 to 4 years with the board. So that was already passed through the board, and I think passed again, and it's up for another review, I think,
Yeah.
next year.
Okay. Well, and I think that kind of explains why really we need, I think, a policy to this regard. Because, the things that we're seeing that are maybe slipping through the cracks, if you will, that are dealing with sexual content, that are really inappropriate for those age groups. I don't know if the review sites, it just depends on.
Well, one of the other things that we use is common sense media a lot of times, especially with the movies and stuff.
Yeah.
Because, okay, we probably, this is more for,
Yeah.
let's put, even though this is leaning towards the teen side, let's put this over in the adult or something like that. There are a variety of things we check.
Right. And I think it's important that we have a diversity of thought, okay? But there's also things that are harmful to children, okay? And there just are. According to CDC, it's actually harmful. So we can have a diversity of things, but that doesn't mean that we have to let anything and everything come through the doors and get in the hearts and minds of children. We're the gatekeepers. We get to say, we get to ultimately decide what's healthy. It really just depends on by what standard we're using. We're wearing masks because of the CDC. The CDC says that, hey, children that are sexually active are increased risk for cancer, all kinds of diseases. So we have some responsibility in that, okay?
Okay, when you say children, you're talking about children and the teen section.
I call anybody under a teen a child, under 18 a child, yes, sir. But I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, there's things that I think are appropriate in the children's section, but there's a lot of sexual content in the teen section as well. And anyways, the promotion of that is ultimately unhealthy for the child, and that's my concern, is that what's best for the health of the child. Are we, like I said, I use that word defrauding, are we stealing something that's not ours to take, and are we stealing something that, we're using taxpayer dollars that is the child's innocence, I do have one more modification. Upon passing this proposal, the library staff has, and we can talk about this number, because we're talking about new material coming in. Library staff has 6 months, I don't know, however long, to produce a list of existing material that would fall within this disclosure policy, I guess.
I don't have that.
No, that's something I'm adding. That would be a line I would add. So if this did pass, so this is talking about new material. I feel like we need a line in there saying that there's a timeline that the staff has to review the existing material, existing sex education books that we have deemed under that policy, or existing books that talk about sexual experiences within the teen and children section. So make a list, for the board. And you can tell me what timeline you feel like is appropriate for that.
How difficult would that be?
Very difficult.
I was gonna say,
I mean,
there's not a Dewey Decimal number for.
we would have to, how much, I know you've looked it up recently, how many things do we have in this library?
Well,
Over 200.
Yeah, and then you consider how much is in the children's and teen section.
I understand it's a big deal, but
Look,
hey, I'll tell you what, the innocence of my child is extremely
and I
important to me.
understand that.
Well, let me ask you this.
And it's just not our place to take it.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from.
Excuse me.
If all the material up to this point, have you received any, what do I want to say, the forms you fill out that you object to it or anything?
No, we have not, and that's the other thing. All these these concerns, we have a form that somebody can come in and fill out.
Again, it's part of the collection development policy,
And
and I
when
think I put it in the August or
And when
September
we receive the form,
board booklet.
we all, David, Tanya, and myself, or whoever selected material, we all sit down and we read and we go over it. And there's been a lot of times we do place some material somewhere else. I mean, we've taken manga and placed it in the adult section because it was more intended for the adults. We're open to that.
Mm-hmm.
We know that sometimes things are going to slip through. It happens. We're all human.
Lily, did you want to say something?
Yes, I do want to ask a couple of questions. I think we're going to the bottom of the document as if we are agreeing on the proposal already. And I would like to get a clarification. I don't know who drafted this, to be honest with you. And I need a clarification of what we mean in the last sentence of the first paragraph when we talk about the parents' role. Are we talking about the board members being the gatekeepers for the children's access to materials in the public library? As a parent, I mean, I'm a parent. I have a library card, and so does each of my older kids. And I understand that I do not have a say in what my children's teacher hand out in based on the curriculum, because the moment I decide to send them to that particular school, what I get and what my child get is what the school chooses, right? But when I go to the library, I actually trust myself in selecting which items my child checks out. And I may sometimes ask for advice to a librarian, from a librarian, but I am the one who says, yes, you can get it, and no, you cannot get that. Should I be relying on the board to do this?
Well, I think it comes into when children kind of free graze in the library. It's not necessarily what we're checking out. It's, my daughter is 11. We do not hover over her necessarily in the library. I mean, we let her walk around and she picks up books and she reads this and that. And so I don't think it's a matter of, I think what it's talking about, the parent's role in a child's life is it's the parent's decision when to expose them to some of these topics, not the libraries. Now, we should be able to come into the library and say, yes, Christian who's 8, roam around, pick out a book, read it. We shouldn't have to necessarily be hovering over there. They're not checking out the book yet, Usually children kind of graze, if you will, without necessarily the parent hovering over them, as they should be able to in the children's section, That's my opinion. But that's my thoughts on that particular comment. Within that bottom line is the parent's role in the child's life is parent has a decision when to talk about lesbianism, or whatever you want to talk about. And so it's not necessarily something for a 6-year-old to be educated on by the library if they're just grazing through the books.
As a parent, when will you discuss that with your child?
I discuss it with them now. But we talk about different perspectives. I don't really talk. I have a 6-year-old. I don't really talk about that with my 6-year-old. But 8-year-old, we're talking about those topics. And but keep in mind, it's the parent. The parent has the right to tell that child what their convictions are about that topic. The library doesn't have that same right as the parent has. They're the parent's child, okay? They're not the library's child. The library doesn't have any kind of authority over that child. It's the parent.
That's right.
I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was never, my child, I have 3 kids, and none of my kid has ever been given a book regarding any specific topic by any librarian so far. And my oldest is already in college. I'm not aware of such an issue, to be honest with you. And I think it comes to the decision about, the policy of the library regarding what the children have access to in terms of, do they need adult supervision or parents? I mean, we simply need a policy saying that it is really up just the parents' decision, or up to the parents, or parents are responsible for what their children choose.
We had a situation, and I don't
Some
know that.
general policy instead of, I'm seeing this policy, the proposal right now, as if the library board is kind of taking up a full-time job of, stepping into a totally different discipline, which I'm not educated in that. I mean, I have a master's, I have a PhD. I actually have a PhD in mass communication, which is, I mean, books are part of it, but I don't specialize in book curation. I cannot make decisions for others, for other parents, to be honest with you. And I feel like I do not qualify in this implementing which book should be allowed, for example, for somebody else's child. But I trust that the librarians are trained to do that. If we want to implement a policy just to guide the librarians or the whole staff, I'm in support of that. But I'm not seeing myself as a board member to review every request about what book they want to purchase, because first of all, I do not trust that I can make a decision until I finish reading that book, and I do not have the time to read every single book that the library wants to purchase.
Well, and that's not what this policy is requesting. It really, the only time this is triggered is if you have sexual or romantic experiences. I know you're going to have Beauty and the Beast in there, and that's just like, okay, whatever, but that's also going to trigger some other things that may need to be censored, if you will. We're talking about sex education type books, any kind of gender theories, that's what this is talking. This is not every book. I mean, I don't know how many books this would trigger in a given time period, but it's just something I feel like the board, with the amount of response that we got from our June display, if the board is going to have some kind of responsibility and it's my understanding that one of the library staff members actually put on a Facebook page to contact the board, right? So if we're going to be directed to contact us, then we have to have some oversight.
Right. I agree with that, but the displays is a whole different issue.
Yes, sir.
And just like what you're saying, you have the right to decide when you want to introduce your children to this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And where you get that information is up to you.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, you have a child that's 8 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're not even in the teen section yet.
Right.
And you're going to share that information with them.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not unusual in that. There's probably a huge population of people who have kids that are going into the 6th grade, because that's when they start teaching it
mm-hmm.
in elementary school.
Yeah.
I taught sex education as a central office administrator because I was a biology, chemistry, and physics teacher and high school teacher. And I was given that as one of my responsibilities. And the whole time that I was involved in that, which was probably at least more than 10 years, 10, 15 years, I only had one parent,
mm-hmm.
who said they did not want their child to be in that class. There was nothing in there that talked about romantic attraction or anything else.
Mm-hmm.
It was strictly information concerning the biology
mm-hmm.
and health.
Yes, sir.
That was involved with it.
Yeah.
So not every person can come to find information, and you know as well as I do, information that's on the internet, you cannot, that's not a good basis to do it.
Right.
So if we have information in the library, in the public library,
mm-hmm.
which is good, factual, and it doesn't have some of these things that you're talking about in it,
mm-hmm.
but it is available for parents to use who may have more problems discussing this with their children than you do.
Right.
And so it would be helpful for them. And so what you're saying, I agree with, is that we should not promote this in such a way that, but at the same time, what about those parents who need this kind of information?
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm not talking about,
No.
I'm not talking about everything on there. I'm talking about
Sex
strictly
education. Yeah. Well,
in the good, in the good,
okay.
in the good.
Hey, I'm with you. Let's say that we do need in the, I don't know if we need it in the teen section. If it's something an adult's gonna do with their kid, maybe it needs to be an adult section, but maybe that's a different conversation. Let's just say sex education. Well, like I said, sex education is being hijacked in our world today.
I agree with that.
And all kinds of things that shouldn't be in a sex ed book are in a sex ed book under the guise of sex education, and it's really pornography. So anyways, it's kind of a gray area, you know what I mean, in the
It's
sense
not
of,
in the public school.
right.
That kind of information is not part
Right.
of the public school education.
Well, so what I'm saying is if you have a sex ed book that says, you know, this is how you do male-on-male intercourse.
It doesn't say that.
No, I'm just saying if you did. If you had a sex ed book that said that,
Yes.
ultimately, you're kind of saying, if we don't talk about, maybe the board needs to say, okay, does it talk about the increased cancer risk in that lifestyle? As part of that, is that really a sex ed book, or is that educating the child how to do a certain act? You know what I mean? So, anyway, all I'm saying is the sex ed book is a gray area that the board, I think, should see the book and say, yes, that is a legitimate sex ed book, or say, that's a little bit too much. That's all I'm saying.
Well, and what I'm saying is that whatever, and I don't know all the books that are in the library, of course,
Yes, sir.
but I'm saying if all this time no one has come forward to say that this book is I checked it out for reasons to be able to discuss with my child, or
Yeah.
for me to be involved with my child for one way or the other.
Right.
Whether it's sex, drugs, or anything that could end up ruining a kid's life, and I didn't find anything that might be objectable to it, then I don't understand why, if someone found it objectable and these people didn't,
Right.
they found it to be useful.
Right.
This is a public library. We've got to serve a community where this is the only place they can find information.
Well, we can do harm, though.
I know we
Just
can.
because somebody feels like something's okay, that doesn't mean it is okay, right? You know,
That's right.
That doesn't mean we should
But
say it
it
is.
also goes the other way, just
Right.
because it might be harmful
Right.
to some people
Right.
because of their religious beliefs or
I mean,
the age level,
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that it wouldn't be valuable to other people.
Well, we all wear masks, right? Because we believe there's something called science. You know, we can take. You know, we can take the religious aspect out of it. We can just look at health. I mean, it is not healthy to promote any kind of promiscuous sexual behavior.
I'm not saying
It's
that.
not healthy, you know.
I'm not saying
And
that.
so it's like we can say someone may have a different opinion, but if they have the opinion that it's okay for kids to be promiscuous, then they're not really promoting the healthiest thing. You know what I mean? Now the Bible is in line with that, but I'm talking about the CDC right now. And so we can talk about they match, you know, in that area. And so anyways, yeah, somebody may have a different opinion, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's the right thing for us to promote. Just because they have that opinion, it may be a harmful opinion, you know.
But that's not what we're
No,
promoting.
I don't think the library is promoting anything by having it in the collection. It is a collection of resources.
Well, there's a reason why we don't have pornography in, like, nude pictures, right? We could say
Yes.
we're not promoting it. We're not promoting it. It's just in the shelves. Well, that doesn't hold water with me, you know.
I don't think there's any pornography in there.
I mean, we cannot say that because we have it in the collection, we're promoting it, because, I mean, when we talk about religion, for example, I teach in higher ed, and I have students of all kinds of religious beliefs. And I mean, I know it's not right to promote any single religion, right? And I expect
Right.
the same in the library, in the public library.
Yeah, the deal with, what we're talking about is sensitive material, and when you start thinking about that, how many other things are sensitive to people that they have varying disciplines on? So we start taking this out, nobody likes Nazis, so we're gonna take out everything that had to do with World War II.
It's not about knocking Nazis, it's about saying if you're a child and you want to be a Nazi, you know, it's different than saying we can't have anything about Nazis in there, right? It's saying, for example, you know, I use the word defrauding. When you read that definition, it's to deceive. That's one of the words you would put with the defraud. If we tell a little girl that she has affection for another female, and we have that in the gay VCs as lesbianism, that's deceiving that little girl. There's all kinds of little girls that have affection for other girls, and they're not lesbians, okay? So that is defrauding that girl, that little child, that is defrauding. It deceives her into thinking she is a certain way or whatever, then she's not. It's defrauding that girl. And so what I'm seeing is we have stuff coming in that is defrauding, that is stealing the child's innocence. And I know we can say we don't want to have any standards because we got to accept all standards, but that's just not true. We just don't really believe that because we sent books to ASU. We don't really believe the things we're saying. It really depends on by what standard we use. We would never have a book in here saying, all right, Johnny, if you feel like lying, you should lie. And we have it in the children's section, it's called whatever, right? We would say, no, that's harmful to that child, right? We wouldn't have it in. We would say, no, we would probably censor that and say, no, I think that's harmful to that child. You just applied a moral standard to that situation. And so all we have in a lot of this is we have the eroding of a moral standard over here. We still have these standards because we all agree with that we shouldn't have lying. A book telling a child if they feel like lying, they should lie. If they feel like doing whatever, they should do it. We wouldn't tell them to follow their feelings over here, but over here we are telling them to follow their feelings because those morals have been eroded in our culture to be normalized, if you will. So we do apply standards. We do apply moral standards. We just disagree on what those standards should be. And it's really that simple. Because we're applying standards.
I quite agree with you, and I don't even know who is talking, but I agree with you in what you just said. But I think wherever we don't agree, I think that's where the parents should play his or her role there. We cannot expect all parents to agree with each other. And we all know that when there are two parents in the house, in the family, both parents don't always agree, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's correct.
And this is just where the conflict lies. It's not anything
And I do
personal.
not
It's
expect
just
to be
where the
everybody's
conflict
parent, to be honest with you.
Right. And so that's why I feel like this document's important. It doesn't look at every book. It doesn't look at, it looks at certain things dealing with sex education, romantic or sexual experiences. I mean, I don't know. I know we have a bunch of books in the teen section, but how many books actually have an actual sex act in them? Probably not that many. I don't know, but it's not, I would doubt it would be hundreds, right? So we're not talking about us looking at thousands of books here. We're talking about, I would hope we're talking about, a few dozen a year or something that actually fit this criteria. And I'm sorry, that's probably appropriate. Do you have a comment?
I've done more research since I wrote this, and when I wrote this, I was not even aware of now the books that I am aware of now, and so I feel like it's taken a whole new meaning for me, and I want to tell you, you're going to find out about the books, and they are pornographic by community standards. And if you've done any research in the last few weeks about what determines obscenity. I mean, I've had to educate myself on a lot of this. The Supreme Court's got some decisions on that. You keep seeing that phrase, community standards, come up. So, community standards for a children's library should not be 3 people here on staff. It should be parents, like we keep talking about. And so, I believe that a library belongs to community because that's the way that it's set up. So we have to do, yes, we have to do our due diligence to consider lots of perspectives and points of view. But the Arkansas statute does clear up a few things for us. And I just got off the phone this afternoon with the Attorney General's office, who told me about statute 568-501. And it says, it is the selling or loaning of pornography to minors. And if you look at the definition of pornography, it includes written and visual content. So it can be text as well. The average person 18 years of age or older applying contemporary community standards would find that the material or performance depicts or describes nudity, sexual conduct, sexual excitement, or sadomasochistic abuse in a manner that is patently offensive to prevailing standards in the adult community with respect to what is suitable for minors. The material or performance lacks serious literary, scientific, medical, artistic, or political value for minors. Serious value for minors, okay? That language is very important. The books that I have found, Mr. Johnson, we're breaking this law in this library, and I would not want to be sitting on that board knowing that and doing nothing about it. We have to be very careful.
That's in a book in the children's section of this library. I mean, they're in the bed, having sex.
There are drawings of oral sex happening. There is written content of oral sex between minors. What's happening is, I know you say, well, we've not gotten complaints. I didn't know, did you? I didn't know, but there's one book that to me is the most egregious, and it was purchased in July, and it's been contested and challenged in some high schools lately. It's a new book, which we love new content around here, right? It's a new book, and that's what's coming through these publishers, and this one has been removed from a school board, from a school library, because it's pornography. This sits on our shelf next to Superman, so any kid that wants to go find a Superman book, now right next to it, will find this book, and it has pornographic images in it of someone performing oral sex on another person. There's several, and you're going to hear about them, and they're not. So you need to be aware of this law. You are going to have to come to some kind of consensus and have some kind of document that says this is how we're going to handle this, because what we've seen is nobody wants to remove a book from the library. Boy, that causes sparks. So you need to know before it gets on the shelves.
Okay, thank you.
That takes some
That's what I'm
effort.
saying.
It takes effort, and I'm so tired of hearing this would be too hard. This would be too hard. These are children who are being exposed to things very young. That sets up a lifetime of problems. We can make a children's library a place that doesn't have to be controversial like that. We can be wise and have discernment, and we can exercise that.
And I agree that, and you keep using the word children, but at the same time, you're talking about doing this in the teen section too, where these people...
They are children by law. If you commit a sexual crime with a 17-year-old, you have committed a sexual crime against a child. They are children.
Yeah, but that's also 18 and 19-year-old people who can buy cigarettes, they can vote, they can get in the Army, they can get married here in Arkansas.
18-year-olds, so we're talking about 18-year-olds and under, what we're talking about. And if we're talking about being in violation of laws, I was actually in contact with somebody who spent years working in this area, and they've got a lot of expertise, and they shared with me that according to Arkansas statute 568-303, that is promoting obscene materials. I would probably write that one down. And promote by definition, which is in those statutes as well, means to produce, direct, perform, manufacture, issue, sell, give, lend, distribute, circulate, present, exhibit. So when you say you're not promoting it, if it's on those shelves out there, you are promoting it, by definition in the Arkansas law.
Well, and this
So,
similar to that, the statute that, and the people that I just spoke to at the Attorney General's office says, it's not just a promotion that the library has to be careful about, it is it being accessible by minors. So it being on the shelves is a problem, but it doesn't necessarily have to be promoted. I think Mark was gonna touch on this, like even just recently, a librarian did promote a particular book to a child that contained some, images of, a lesbian couple making out. So, like, your staff is putting this into, oh, let me show you this book. And as a parent, you go, what? Why are you doing that? You know, and so, I don't think that we even need to be close to the perception of that happening. You're losing trust in your community. I hope that you see that. You're losing trust.
I understand.
and I mean, I can only speak for myself, but, I mean, we as concerned, you know, parents and people who use this facility, we're not trying to dog you, we're trying to help you. We are trying to help you make this facility better for our community and for our children. Like, we want to work with you. We don't want to work against each other, you know? And so I think that's a misconception, that we're just trying to, like, dog you all, and we're not. We're just trying to make you aware of what we have seen with our own eyes and what we have experienced and what it looks like from the outside looking in, and it doesn't look good. And we don't want that for this place. I want to come here and be able to use this facility. I want to be able to bring my children here safely and know that their innocence isn't going to be wronged, you know? And so we really are trying to help, but, I mean, we've got to meet somewhere.
Okay, thank you for that. Appreciate that. I would have, of course, preferred that this information come to us as we're doing now, rather than exploiting it in a public forum, at a public meeting. All of this could have been done had we had this information in a subcommittee that we have now.
Well, we didn't
Am I
know,
right?
we
This
had to do
wasn't
our own
publicly announced or
research.
anything.
This is our own research that we had to do on this. Like, I just found out about this yesterday.
Okay,
And
that's
so
good. I appreciate you bringing it to us today, then.
So, I mean, I'll let you know as soon as I found out.
Just offer some suggestions to that. I mean, David said himself, this meeting was not publicly announced.
No,
So we're not even in a public meeting, so. the
No,
fact that
this
we're
is a
here-
public meeting.
yes,
But it wasn't advertised.
I'm just going by the law. I think
well, I'm saying
we
that's
get
why
blamed for a
you're
lot of things, and
saying-
we're just trying to follow the rules.
That goes-
All we're doing is following the rules,
That
right?
goes both ways. You're casting blame on a citizen here. to
no,
say you should
I'm not. I'm just saying that there has
another
been
way.
there is a reasonable way for people to bring this information and to the attention of not only the library personnel, but also the board.
Hey, explain to me the process so that we now know that would get you to listen and respond to us reaching out to you and saying we've got concerns.
Okay, well, we have an email that when you send it to the board, send it to that, it goes to every single board member.
I have sent you so many. And you
Yes.
only replied. So tell me now, what would I do then? How many emails have y'all gotten that you've not replied to in the last 4 months?
Well, I've replied to many of them for the first time people, who were not sure whether we got it or not, to assure them that everything that came to that was received by the board members. David made sure that that information had gone to the board. Now, whether I reply to it or not, that still doesn't mean I'm not taking action on it.
Did you reach out to me and say, okay, what books are you talking about? What are you referring to? What is this?
I had a list of all the books when you were on the board. You gave me all of the, that information.
What books are we talking about?
Well, there were about 30 of them. that were,
displayed. I didn't, yeah.
there were complaints, yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Don't make it sound like we have done something inappropriate with this. We've tried to get our voice out there and to get your attention, to get people to say, okay, what are we actually talking about? It got spun into so many different directions. And you know how heated it's been. So I don't know what else I could have done. I feel like there's been a wall up. I felt like when I was on the board, there was a wall up, and I had some emails, I FOIA'd some things, and where Kurt's saying Amanda's stirring stuff up, and like, what in the world? I'm just trying to point out some concerns and get somebody to say, okay, let's look at this. I would have loved to attend a subcommittee meeting in July. That's what I would have loved to have happened. But I'm not the chair, and I'm not the vice chair. And when I did call a meeting, you did not reply and say if you were coming or not. Now,
What meeting?
Had you shown up, I would have had a quorum that night in August. Special meeting a week or so after our August meeting. I sent you an email.
Yes, right.
And so we showed up because you didn't tell me if you were going to come or not.
Well, it had to be called by the chairman.
You could have said, we're not gonna have it. See all these technicalities?
Well,
It's a lack of communication coming from one side of this.
Just to make sure there's clarification on that though, because I have the email showing that, Janice did tell you that she wasn't gonna call the meeting, and that you knew that beforehand, and you got that message before you
I can
still
read
went.
that email to you, and that is not exactly what it says, but I'm
She
used to
said
that.
she told you that she didn't want that meeting and she wasn't gonna have that meeting,
That is
and she
not what
didn't
she told
alter
me
it.
on the phone.
I can go copy it out for you.
Yes, that
Well,
was
just-
after the meeting that she sent that
Happy to do
email.
that.
She did not reply to my request for a meeting via email.
I'm not trying to argue with you, I'm just
Okay,
telling you-
ladies.
I'm just telling you what
I
she
just
said.
Ladies and gentlemen, okay, this meeting has been called for a specific purpose. And, I do have to go get my wife in a while, so let's do the business at hand. I promise you that any book that, I have read every book that anybody said to me they thought was inappropriate. I went into the children's library and I checked them all out. It doesn't take long to read a book that thick.
Well,
So,
how about?
I've done all that, so I'm trying to do what a good board member would do, okay? So I don't wanna be cast in a bad light either. I've spent more time on this than I did the other 2.5 years I was a board member.
Mhm.
I mean, 12.5
I believe
years.
that. I do.
Well,
So let's
You know-
get down to business on this, and see if there's something that we can do on this to come to a consensus that we can put at rest, that we will somehow be involved in looking at the material without taking away the power of the people, the staff who are hired to do this. I don't mind that. As a matter of fact, one of the suggestions that I made to David was, when this all started, well, gather up all the written things that people have complained about. I'd be glad to look over them and look, just like I did the other books, the first time I ever heard about that there was a problem with it. I went and read all of those books, okay? So, we have to know that.
Mhm.
So my question is, on this, it just seems like that we're having a hard time finding the dividing line as to where appropriate material should be in the library. I think we don't necessarily agree on everything that's inappropriate, okay?
Yes, sir.
I'll give you that.
Yeah.
But I think we need to find a line where appropriate material can be in the library for parents to use that would be, in their best interest to use with their children. Now, where we draw the line, because we have these artificial things, that's a teen, 13, but also, we've got children. How many different, children's units do we have?
Hang on, I have actually got,
Isn't there about 3, 4?
there's, okay, let's see, many kids, easy, juvenile, so yeah,
Easy to
about,
read,
easier, early readers. So there's about 4 to 5.
All right, what would be the age group of the one right before 13?
Probably juvenile fiction, juvenile fiction and nonfiction. Those are your chapter books, those are books that are meant to be, read independently or help with a parent.
Okay.
It doesn't have as many illustrations or pictures.
Okay.
Boxcar Children, Babysitter Club books, stuff like that. I read as a kid, but anyway.
Perfectly Normal, that shows a child masturbating, is also in those sections.
What sections was that? That they were,
That's in the juvenile book,
In the nonfiction.
and then
what age is that?
Not fiction is one of them.
That one is recommended for grades 5 and up.
So 11 years old or so, or 10 and up or so.
10, 11, 12.
I mean, I think it's evident we need some criteria when we're talking about these topics.
Okay, let me ask you this. Are there any more sensitive material notices that you have, or is this it? You're dealing with the sexual stuff. There's not any other
I mean, we could, I don't know, you could.
smoking, drug abuse, anything else? Or is that for a later date? We're just talking about this one issue right here, right? Is that correct?
I think at this time, I mean, we could, I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to add other things like that. Like you said, maybe there's a balance. We as a culture, pretty much educate kids and we say that smoking is harmful to your health,
I agree with that.
So I don't know that that's really,
No, I just use that, I just use that as an example.
yes, sir. And so,
Well, I could support all this if it dealt with children's and tweens. I just have some problems with teens, because that's when parents are really gonna want and need to have things. First of all, there's questions that are gonna come up at school with sex education. They're gonna go home and talk to their parents about it, and some of them are gonna have some problems with that, so.
Just for clarification, all this document does is brings a sex education book that's meant for teens. All it does is brings it to the board to look at. It doesn't get rid of anything. All it does is bring it to our attention that we're gonna have a new sex ed book in the teen section, and we as a board can look at it and say, that's great.
As representatives of the community, you're talking about, we represent the community then, the board, members of the board.
Well,
And we're looking at it like.
somebody has to say something is appropriate.
Okay, I'm just asking you.
Somebody has to make a decision,
Okay,
Yes, sir.
all right. How much time are we talking about here? It said the board will be given 3 months prior notice for intended purposes, and creation. We got an entirely different thing that deals with, display material.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we can take that out. So we're talking about intended purchases of materials for those 3 departments only, children, tween, and teen departments. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, library, staff, you order stuff every month, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Oh.
Actually, I order stuff in adult-wise, because the adult area is a bigger collection. I order stuff at least once or twice a week. Once or every other week. Children's usually twice a month, teens about once a month.
Okay.
It kind of depends. Our big thing is to make sure that the rotation's going on. In other words, we're receiving stuff, the catalogers have stuff to do, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I get you. I understand that. It's a process of getting this material in. Okay, so, what we're talking about is from the time you read and decide which material you want, then how much time is it gonna take for those to examine that material. Because if this is the only topic we're talking about, there can't be but a few things that would fall under this category. Is that correct?
Well, go
Yeah,
ahead.
so what would be tricky, it's not the nonfiction books, because the nonfiction books are straightforward, right? A nonfiction book, if it's on sex ed, it's on sex ed, and so that's an easy
Yeah.
book to
Yeah.
fall under this. Where it gets tricky is that, like, for example, I'm reading a mystery book, but it has a love interest in it, right? So if they get together and they're, you know, they get together in a hotel and they do something, so now when you say romantic experiences or attraction, that's telling me that that book also has to come to the board, you see? And so that's really where it gets really tricky, because
Fiction books don't have a number. They
right,
don't find their
and
author.
when we read a review, since that maybe is just one scene and they're gonna describe the book as being a mystery book, we don't read all of the books. We can't possibly read every
Ahead
book
of time.
before we get it, and we can't read it ahead of time anyway, because we can't read it until we get it, right? So all we can do is go by what the review says, and so that's really where, I mean, there would just have to be some clarification on that, because that would be an area where I don't know how from a practical point of view that could take place, right?
So in fact, if we're looking at
Don't get me wrong, I'm not against it or for
Yeah.
it, I'm just telling you from the practicality point of view, I don't know how that would
okay,
happen.
so
right?
so if we have so the intended purchases of nonfiction books, then
That's a
we could do
straight ahead.
That's a straight ahead, and we could do nonfiction then.
That's all straight ahead.
And then if the book came in and it was felt that that book fell into this category,
But
then
see,
it would have to be
but
reviewed.
we don't have time to read all the books. I mean, we buy
I know.
thousands and thousands of books.
I know.
Even if I split it up between the 30-some full-time people here, we don't have time to read all these books.
Tanya, will you, and now this is on Common Sense Media, you mentioned that, Christie. Will you look up this book on Common Sense Media? And I believe it told in their review, that it had some kind of sexual acts. This is, the Firekeeper's Daughter.
Oh, yeah, I've read that.
Yeah,
Is that a fiction?
Common Sense Media.
It's a teen fiction book,
Okay.
yes.
Teen fiction.
Yes.
So this might be an example of what we might see. So Common Sense Media review, and I think I'm pretty sure it had, I actually deleted it so, from my pictures, but, it had,
Would you just like for Mike to read this?
If it has, yeah, well, I see what you're saying, yeah. But we know for sure, nonfiction, we could run this,
Well, I mean,
through on nonfiction, but we don't know
surely-
about fiction, but
surely
good.
there is a site that reviews books and tells you if there's sexual acts in that book. I mean, surely out of all.
I don't know.
Are
I mean-
publishers not willing to, do they ever say, this has this scene in it, or?
Some do, I mean, mind you, I do, most of my focus is on adult materials, but I do know that there are some reviews that they put that, now this, mind you, this is, going by School Library Journal and other reviews, they tell you what age bracket they think it would be appropriate for. Teen books, a lot of times they don't go into a lot of detail about the romantic attraction. Children's occasionally, but I haven't seen a whole lot of it. But like I said, a big thing we pay attention to is those ages. I've had them come and say, hey, da-da-da-da, what do you think? And I'll try to dig a little deeper to see where, okay, yeah, that probably would be better off in young adult or teens, or probably be better over in the adult area. I mean, we do have these conversations
Right.
a lot.
Yes. So there are standards being implemented,
We
Yeah.
spend an awful lot of time.
Right.
figuring
Yeah, I mean-
out
Yeah, but I think that's just really what we're getting right down to is by what standard are we using? And that's what we're talking about, If someone has a different, if the curator has a different standard than the majority of the community, then that could be a problem. And that's all we're seeing, But
From my point of view, it's more of the function it's more of the, I know what you're trying to do. I know you're trying to stop the book from getting on the shelf before there would be a challenge for it, but that was an almost impossible onus on the library. Like, we just don't have enough people. Like I said, we don't all read the books. I mean, we just can only go by the reviews. This is what every library does, is can go by the reviews. That's why most libraries, in fact, every public library that I know, has a challenged book where they're looking at it from the other side of it, saying, okay, if you have a problem with this book, then it goes before the board, and then the board catches it. So, again, catching the really obvious ones, I get it. We could catch the really obvious ones, but if it doesn't say it in the review, I wouldn't want to come out with some sort of a policy and then the board come back on the library saying that we didn't do our due diligence when we didn't even know that that was in there, because how would we know that it was in there unless one of us personally just happened to read the book? I mean, we're all readers. We read a lot, but I mean, again.
I think you could account for that with some language of saying, there's, in that law that I read you, there's a whole section about what is just an unfortunate mistake. And I know, you don't know until you read page 84.
You'd have to reword some of this in order for that to take
Can I
place.
say something?
If it existed like this, it would be nearly impossible, just impossible.
Lily's wanting to say something.
Can I say something?
Go ahead, Lily.
As we are focusing on the second half of the proposal, just because I do research in analysis of content, I'm seeing a big problem with the definition here, because we've got to figure out what we are analyzing. Are we talking about the topics being the summary, being the title, being the category, or what are we analyzing? I mean, if we charge somebody to analyze those and label those, code those, we've got to define for them what we want them to analyze. So are we talking about a whole book? Are we talking about the first chapter, or what are they analyzing?
I mean, if we have a book in the tween section that has somebody giving somebody a blowjob, then it's the whole book. I mean, if it's the last chapter, it's inappropriate,
Okay, so do those people that we charge, do they have access to the whole book before they make the decision?
No.
We do not.
No.
I mean,
Then it's a mission impossible. If we're really wanting to act on behalf of the parents, then it is possible that when the books are on the shelf, we allow the community, the readers, the patrons to flag some of the items if they see that they violate certain standards. We can give them a set of standards allowing them to flag the items. And then those that are ranked high in the system can be brought to the attention of the board or to the management and have them do a secondary type of review and screening. And, together as a team, possibly some decisions can be made.
You're relying on children to flag a book in the teen section. Most of the time, the parents never knew. They just passed it on to their friend because, hey, look what's in this book.
That is why I said parents need to do their jobs.
Section.
Because
I think
there's no way that...
We're trying. We're here.
I think you made a good point, and I think that would catch the things that slip through the cracks. But I see no reason why we can't go to Common Sense Media. Tanya, did you read on there on the review where it talked about sexual acts of some kind in that book?
Yes,
Okay.
and as I read the book, I can also tell you that it was a 19-year-old and a 22-year-old.
Okay. So anyways, you have sex in the book. Common Sense Media said it's an easy thing that goes to the board. That doesn't take much time. So I understand what you're saying, Doctor, and I think that's a facet of the, our approach, but I think it's also on the front end relatively easy to go to Common Sense Media and say, okay, does this book have anything? And it triggers it within this document. So I think we need both,
I personally think on the prior to purchase stage, in that stage, we need some general policy. And then we allow the community to, users to flag certain items if we define certain categories. And then we consider their input and decide, what actions we take to review them or to move them to to whatever decision that that is made.
Yeah, I think just because it comes down the line in being in one age group, that we should have the discretion, and the library staff has already told us that they do on many occasions decide that it's not in the appropriate section, and they move it into a section that's more appropriate for it. So this is essentially what we're doing now.
Which has
This-
not stopped pornography.
Exactly. We need to be more vigilant in making this happen. So,
Well,
my question is, we got to have something here that's a consensus that we will indicate to the community that we're making an effort to do better at doing these things, but at the same time, we also have to say that the community has a responsible role too. Just because they pick a book up and they look at it and go, oh my gosh, I don't want my kid to read this, well, then fill out the form.
Yeah.
Because surely, if there's been books in there, as you've indicated, all of these years, and nobody's complained about it, then why not? Why haven't they brought it to the
And maybe
attention of the library?
in that regard, maybe we need to educate the users, the community. There might be a PR campaign or something, but kind of call for action from the whole community instead of just
Okay.
trying to make the decision for them. Allow them
Particularly in the
to
children's
provide
department.
input.
I agree with the children's department. I have no problem with that.
an issue that I really see is these things aren't slipping through the cracks, okay? These 10-year-olds with oral sex, that's not slipping through the cracks that no one knows about, So we know about them. The staff knows. So I think we're missing something in all this. We're acting like the staff has no idea what's going on. And I would say a lot of the time they know about these topics, So I understand that it will be a difficult task to review everything, but there is another issue here that we really hadn't even talked about, right? There's another issue that we know this is in there and we still do nothing about it, right? So I think it's, we got some different things to talk about in that, and I mean, that's a different facet.
That's a different thing. I want to get something that we can take to the board meeting on this and finalize. So the question is, in order to gain the support of the majority of the board members, we can look at I don't know, what would be the most efficient way to, any book that has this information in it that the library staff is aware of, what's the most efficient way to make it available for subcommittee of the board members or what to look at?
I mean,
Will we have to come in, once a week or?
so if you're trying to stop it at the front end, right? So you could only read what we read.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying that like in a negative way or in a limiting way, but if we're only reading a review and you're trying to truly stop us spending taxpayer money to buy the book, we can only give you the review because that's the only review that we have, right? You know what I mean? I can't get the book before it's published in order for you to read it to decide whether you want to buy it or not. I mean, that would be impossible. By that point, I'm just buying the book, right?
Right.
It's just an impossible practicality. There's no way to do that, and
We'd be
so
wasting money
it would
to
really,
get it back.
it would really be you just reading the same reviews that we're reading, right? And so, I mean, if you apply any of these terms to any review that we have, all we could do is pass it on to the board and then have the board look at it. And the other thing that I would say with regard to reviews, there are certain industry standards for us of places that we go and look. And so you'd have to really define those, because I'm sure that you could get off in several different areas of review where you might, like somebody made the comment during the course of the past couple of months that like they thought that the New York Times was very liberal, or they thought this was very this or this was very that. And so again, I'm not questioning that or getting involved in that in one way or the other, but you have to have a set of where you're gonna accept the reviews from and where you're not, and then
Right.
you have to stick to that, and then, and we would have to stick to it, and the board would have to stick to it. You can't just come in and say, oh, well, I just read it on such and such a review, and, you understand what I'm saying? So, that would be something that you would have to decide on. And again, we can work on trying to rewrite this in the next 2 days and give it out to the subcommittee to vote on. That's what we did with the last one for the other subcommittee, but.
I kind of think that's where we're at, is we've had some great discussion here. We have something to go on. We don't have to have anything done, for Monday night. We can have another meeting just like this, and I can do some research on, because I didn't really know, I learned a lot.
Yeah.
I can do some research on sites that are good for reviews, because we need to have this in the document. These are the sites we're gonna use that may have the terminology that triggers, some of these things.
And again, I can give you another copy of it, but it's in the collection development policy it's a 6-page document. I keep referencing that back, but that really covers how we really decide on how we get everything. And so it lists all the review sites that we use. I mean, I know that there's one that doesn't exist anymore, but when it comes up for a review, we'll take it away, and that's the Romantic Times. I don't think that they make that anymore, but that was for our romance books.
I thought we did.
Oh, we did take it off. Okay, that's good. Okay,
Because Tanya and I had a
knew
conversation about
that
it.
had gone away, but.
So
Yeah,
can I
that's
ask
the old
about procedure, like what happens now if, with these books that we're telling you about are probably illegal to even have here?
There's a form there's a challenge form, or I forget what it's not
It's
called.
the, hang on, I got it
For
to policy.
reconsideration form.
There you go.
Okay.
Okay, so walk forward from there, what?
So
You
then
go to the front desk.
you fill it out, and then you'll give it to me or somebody on staff. It'll come to me in any case, but, and then I'll look up all the reviews about that material, and then I'll give it to the board, and then let them decide. And if we have a copy of the book that's available, then I'll give them that. Now, the chances of me having 7 copies of it, I mean, I don't know, it just depends on what book, and I won't necessarily be able to, I'm not gonna recall a book from a patron if they have it checked out, you know what I mean? Again, I can't do that, so, we've had challenges in the past, a lot of them just been, misunderstandings. I'll give you an example. The last one that I remember is, there's a graphic novel, called Mouse, and it has a swastika on it, and somebody thought that it was inappropriate and that it was promoting that. And in fact, really, the whole book is against that. But the person didn't read the thing, and so then they brought it, and when I went back to them, I said, well, here are the reviews, and this is what it's about, and this is what they said, then they withdrew the complaint to the board, and they were like, okay, then I don't need to complain about that anymore.
And if the board looks at this book and says, are they going to vote? How does
They would have to vote on whether they wanted to either, they could vote to, like in that example, that was, I think, in the teen section, so they could vote to say, okay, we don't think it's appropriate for the teen, we'll put it in the adults, or they could vote to take it out of the collection all the way. So the board always had the power to do that, and the board still has the power to do that. That's part of the collection development policy.
So in the meetings that we've had, where there's been all this talk about how, censorship is a slippery slope, and what is all that? Why didn't you say, let's look at the titles, tell me what they are, and let's let the board start voting on them one at a time, which is why I called a special meeting in the first place, so that we could get something done.
So again, if you look back at your packet of information from the September board meeting, it was, from the August board meeting, that collection development policy was in the board packet.
That I received when I sat down at the meeting.
In fact, you received that policy when you joined the board and you came around for a tour, and I gave you a packet of information that had most of
that. Yes, but that's what I'm saying is, the reason why I'm asking questions is because it's not the message that's been sent out for several months. It's been, you can't censor anything, to where, even members of the board were like, you're right, we can't censor anything. And actually, and challenging books is treated as like you're a book burning Nazi, because you might challenge a book, but really what the message probably does need to be sent out to the community is, yes, you're right, let's practice discernment is the reason why we're appointed in the way that we are here, because you are representatives of your community, And so to say, I am willing to look at that and I am willing to bring a vote to that, let's look at it, I really believe that would settle a lot of frustration in the community.
I'm not disagreeing with what
Me
you're
either.
saying, but
That's what I did from the very first.
But it sort of gets back to what his comment is that at some point, it's also the responsibility of the public, right? And so you as a board member, have that same responsibility because you are representing the library, right, as a board member. All the board members are representing the library. You had that information, and you could have put that out to all the people that have been contacting
I
you,
promise you, I started telling everybody to fill out the form.
and I haven't gotten one form yet.
They don't trust the process. And I have some parents who got on there, and then they had a lot of questions about that, and I don't know. So I would say I would direct them to you.
But I didn't get any emails questioning any of that, didn't get
All right,
anything.
we're a little off the topic here, guys, and I've really got to, pick my wife up.
You know,
Okay.
I would like to do some research on review sites, of books, just myself, because I'm just not knowledgeable in that area. I haven't done a lot of that.
Here.
Nope,
I don't have it with me.
And,
I had something on Kirkus if you
you know,
want
if
to.
you, you know,
Okay, David, do you want to rework on this and try to have something to the board? Or do we want to just say that the subcommittee's met and we're drafting some information? Mark?
Yeah,
What
it
do you
sounds
wanna
like
do?
that you wanna,
I mean, we can vote on it now and do that later. I mean, whatever, I mean, I'm game for whatever. I do think there's gonna be some important information, it sounds like, at this next board meeting that is applicable to the need for this. I don't know if that's changing anything or something.
I see the need for it.
Okay,
Okay?
okay.
I see the need for it.
I think you and Lily and you guys all agree with it. And I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. It sounded like you needed more time. So to me,
Well,
the choice is either to.
If we're gonna nail down the review sites right now, I would wanna do some research personally on that.
Okay.
But if we don't have to nail down the review sites and make those definitive right now, we can, you know.
Well, I don't see how we can do anything, prior to purchase except on nonfiction, since there's very little way, unless it explicitly says this when they read the book.
Well, I mean,
But it could come and we not do it, and so we'd have to review it afterwards.
I think the fiction is more challenging, but a lot of review sites will have that info. I just pointed out that Common Sense Media talks about the sexual acts in this book, whether, I mean, they are not necessarily minors, but it is. So I think we can catch a lot of the fiction. I just think it's more difficult, and there may have to be that next step of community involvement and involvement of the library staff as they read the books, to bring it to our attention. So anyways, I think that's a little bit more of a challenge, but that doesn't mean we say it's just for fiction.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. Would it be possible then for the group that reviews the materials, we meet on the board once a month, that any book they found from the previous month that they are considering ordering, that they bring us the listing of those books, we see how many there are, and then if we had a subcommittee of on the board, then we could, you know, if it's 4 or 5, that's fine. I just can't, I don't have the time to read 700 books per month.
Well, no, I think what I would like to be provided to the board is, you can just have a couple of pages of that book and get the context of that sexual act, whatever.
Yes.
You know what I mean? You don't have to read the whole book. A lot of times the pictures are pretty self-explanatory. I don't think that we're asking anyone to read the whole novel or whatever it is.
Well, in the children's section, their own books are only gonna be that thick.
Right, so I
read
think,
30 of them in a week.
you know, if we could just, you know, the staff could just point out, these are the 3 pages, you know what I mean, of that book you probably need to read to make your decision, you know, and.
But we're not gonna have that until they've ordered it. All we'll have is the review.
Some of the times, yeah. Some of the times we'll just have the review, and some of the times we'll, and maybe, I don't know, I mean, do we just get one copy of books?
No, we get more. It depends upon demand,
Right.
and I'm coming from the adult side, but, bestsellers, Patterson, Grisham, all those, we usually get 2 to 3 copies. 1 copy goes in our quick pick collection. I'll get out in a minute, guys.
Yeah.
And that's the one where you can't hold it, but, you know, first grab, first serve.
Yeah.
Same thing with movies. I use Marvel movies. I'm gonna get 4 copies. maybe 8, you know, Black Widow, whatever. Same thing over in children's on some things.
Because remember, we have 8 branches.
So,
And we
I
also
guess-
have
I
8
guess what I was
branches as
getting
well.
at is, you know what, we may have to purchase a book and then turn around and say, no, it's not, it's inappropriate. I think that's okay. I think majority of taxpayers would say, I appreciate you doing your due diligence. You don't have to order 8. We can order 1. If we think it's questionable, we say, well, I don't know until I see it. Do we see it? We say, okay, there's nothing wrong with this. Christy, go ahead and order 4 of these, you know? So I know we could technically be wasting money, but we are talking about something pretty important, you know? And so I don't think anybody in the community would come down on the library and say, you need to have less money because you're wasting money. I don't think that's the way it'll be looked at. I think it'll be looked at as wisdom and discernment.
Again, I'm really not disagreeing with you. I'm looking at it really just from the process point of
Yeah.
view and how practical it is. That's really, all my comments are always just based on, like, how we could.
How we're gonna function, yeah.
How we're gonna do it and how much it's gonna slow us down.
Yeah.
Or, you know, not, and so.
Well, I have a point on that. You know, the way that I have found a lot of these is, I'll tell you, it's a little tricky, and I personally think that there's a reason for this, but if you try to search up questionable books for children, sexual books for children, all these search engines are like, the first things you get are websites about how dare you challenge a book. And you have to dig, and then you start to find what books we're talking about. But where I found a lot of this lately is school board meetings where parents are bringing books forward. So your communities right now, all over the country are.
That's all we've been asking for
So,
this whole time.
Let me finish. So why can't one of your staff members do some due diligence there beyond your reviews in your publishing journal? To dig in other ways, okay, maybe we can just start a list of things that we need to be mindful. Okay, this author is known for this. You know, you can start those books that could trigger things, and then you could just say to the board, okay, we had someone request this book, but it is on this list, and we want you guys to take a look at that. I mean, the one about the blowjobs, that is the language that is used in there, and is part of a set. I've not looked at the rest of the set, but somebody needs to, and it's in the realistic fiction section of your teen section. We're telling you it's realistic fiction, that this is what, I mean, it's just awful to tell girls this is what they should be doing.
I got you.
It's easy to find when you have that in mind to start looking for it, but you're relying on a kid to come forward and tell you, or the publisher to tell you, and that's not going to happen. But you could you could trust someone with that job to look and be intentional.
I'd have to really study it, but I almost think just sort of thinking about it and knowing how busy she is, we probably have to hire somebody else on staff.
You have to budget to do
Because-
that, and I just watched 5 people sit out there for 30 minutes and do nothing. I've been doing this on my own time. We all have. You can ask the community to volunteer.
I'd be more than happy to volunteer.
Make a parent committee of volunteers. That is their passion to help you guys keep your stacks clean and safe for kids so that they can come in here and pull books off the shelf.
Okay, so, you wanna just table this to the next month and try to have another meeting? Let David kinda clean this up, and if you have any other information to put in here, we've got to,
Yeah, I think, I think that wouldn't be a bad idea to, it depends on what we have to have. If we have to, like I said, if we have to say the exact review process, this is how we're gonna review and to find this, whether the books have this information, I mean, do we need to have that in the policy? Or,
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Because
I guess I have some reservations. You know, I just have some reservations that, unless it's kind of nailed down, that, I mean, it can't be subjective. It has to be, this is how we're gonna handle this, I think.
So then my answer to you would be the more exact you want it, the more exact the policy has to be written.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, really, that's it.
Now-
Because we don't want any vagueness either. If you
Now-
want it, if the board decides that they want it to be a certain way,
Right.
then they have to be exact about exactly how they want it to be.
At the same time, I think to Amanda's point, it's pretty easy for someone to say, Google, does Firekeeper's Daughter have any sexual content in it, right? I know it's not certain this exact review people, but that might be part of it. Like, I think if we want to find it, I think we're kind of shorting ourselves if we say, look, we go to these 3 sites, if they don't say anything about it, then we're just like proceeding as normal. I don't know that's really, I don't think it has to be like that necessarily. I mean, does that make sense?
It's not what you're saying that it doesn't make sense, but none of you work at a library,
Yeah.
so you don't really understand our processes. We're trying to adapt to whatever you want us to do. I'm not trying to be difficult, trying to do what you want, but I'm just trying to sit here and figure out how that would work from a practical point of view. I mean, I just need some time to think about that, and we might need some time to
yes, sir.
figure that out. You understand what I'm saying?
we
'Cause
can
I don't think it's
discuss
just as easy as that. And
Yeah.
I'm not one that trusts Google either, so,
Right.
No.
yeah, we try not to just take off whatever you find on Google.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I'm just
But
saying,
we've
it doesn't
driven
have to
in
be
by
just
plane.
these 3 necessarily review sites, and we can
Yeah.
do some digging and see if it came up at a school board, you know what I mean? I'm like, oh, okay, this is why it got, this is why it had some issues here. It just seems like we, I don't know, I know that's a little bit, that might be more challenging, but it can be a little bit challenging to find the material in the books, and I think that's I think that's on purpose, so.
All right, you got you have the exhibits and the display policy. Have you had a chance to read that before you came to the meeting?
I forgot
It's got a lot
to
of-
put that out.
Yes, I
Huh?
have.
I didn't know that this was gonna be a
No, yeah,
committee
oh.
on that.
Oh, okay, that's fine. I just
Yeah.
had a copy of it, so
Yeah.
okay, that's fine.
I think I sent that out to the whole board to sort of look at, so.
Okay. All right, that's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, hurry.
From an industry standpoint, we've got the movie industry that we can look at the back of any movie and pretty well tell what's in the movie. We've got the gaming industry that we can look at the front of it and pretty well tell what's in the game, whether or not it's appropriate for 10-year-olds or 15-year-olds, whatever. At what point do libraries, school libraries, bookstores start putting pressure on publishing companies, authors, to put somewhere on the outside cover of a book, this has violent content, this has sexual content, so you can look at the outside of a book and know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know the
Is
answer to
that
that
something
question.
you could bring up at state convention meetings, LAL meetings, something, and start getting?
We've talked about things like that in the past. We talked about all kinds of things,
There's been
but.
some effort
There's-
from college.
Yeah, there's been a
colleges to
lot
put
of,
trigger
there's
warnings
been
on
a lot
books.
of, I mean, nothing, don't get me wrong, nothing's been decided, but there has been a lot of communication about that at some point. I mean, it's not like it's not, hasn't been thought about, I guess would be my answer.
It
We're
just seems like right now it's coming up at a lot more board meetings, school board meetings, library board meetings and things, that now it may be able to get enough traction to.
It might.
Get,
Yeah, it might.
That's
I mean,
what you,
at some point, movies weren't rated, at some point,
Yeah.
games weren't rated.
Exactly.
At this point, books aren't rated, but they probably need to be.
exactly. And the whole motivation behind this, of course, is profit from those people who are in those industries.
Right.
And you're old enough, you're not as old as I am, but you're old enough to know that when you went to a G-rated movie with your friends, your parents could depend on it being G-rated.
Oh, yeah.
And now there are things that are X-rated at the movie that you couldn't get in unless you were an adult that are on TV right now in prime time.
Yeah.
It's the nature of the culture, unfortunately, and profits.
And it would be easier if there was something like that, because then you wouldn't even need all this. You could just write it all in and everybody would be fine. So I totally understand what you're saying. Yeah.
Okay, folks, I have to pick my wife up. She's standing somewhere. And, thank you, everybody, for coming and, getting this information in.
Thank you, Dr. Lilly.
And we are trying
Yes,
to
I'm
get,
here.
we're making a concerted effort to do better.
Appreciate that.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, if you want to. It was really for all the